Today, I want to introduce everyone, our guest and colleague, Damien Nee. Damien Nee traveled India extensively, even more than to so many Indians. And I believe Damien is a truly ambassador of Ireland to India and India to Ireland. Damien has a vision how in 21st century Ireland and India can develop relationship. I met Damien a few years back, and the kind of enthusiasm and knowledge Damien have in developing this relationship that is amazing. Recently, Damien Nee joined India Day committee to organizing India Day this year. Even I was a bit nervous that in this COVID situation, how we can organize this. But the kind of enthusiasm Damien showed and pushed me that we definitely have a wonderful celebration of India Day this year as well. And that could be mostly virtually. And we are bringing four corners of Ireland and four corners of India to participate in it jointly. Damien, you are very welcome. And just as a first question, what you thought a number of years back when you traveled India, what experience and knowledge you gained, and how you think that actually that India could be a Beijing partner with Ireland in 21st century?
Well, as a child in a very remote part of Ireland, our nearest neighbours were a mile away. I read and read, and India fascinated me from the time I was sort of that high. And then I read a book by a wonderful guy called Marshall McLuhan, who had a vision of a global village. And he predicted this in the early 60s, one world interconnected by an electronic nervous system, making it part of our global sort of cultural system before it actually happened. And he had this vision that the actions of somebody in a remote corner of the world in one place would impact the lives of somebody in remote corners elsewhere. And it seemed so unrealistic because if you traveled into any major town or city, then you got things that were totally different. And now we have become, with global communications, ease of travel, that global village. And we need to think about how we interact with people in every remote corner. And if ever there was proof of that, you have it in this dreadful situation now of the coronavirus, where something that came from probably a bat cave and probably possibly having had work done on it in an environment that wasn't totally secure, has led to it impacting people in every corner of the world. And this time, the only effective way of dealing with it is that there's a global response and that we all act together to look after each other. But back to my love of India, I grew up in a place called Connacht, and I read about Connacht Square in Delhi, and then
Connaught Place.
Yeah, and then which is not necessarily a very good thing, but the Connacht Rangers, the English world was very good at getting others to do their dirty work. And at one point in the late 1700s, 81% of their army had been recruited in Ireland. And the deal was they would send you far away, and they really wanted to get the Irish out of their own backyard so they wouldn't cause trouble. And I have a lovely little silver memento that was given to one of them on the completion of his tour of duty. And they loved the Indian people and were possibly a little reluctant to do some of the things that they were asked to do there. And again, you get stories and tales handed down of the incredible, wonderful nature. And remember going to Shering-Pattingham outside my store in my 20s as a young guy wandering around India, and I was just in awe and fascinated by everything that I came across. But it was the degree of contentment and happiness among people who had not a whole lot by Western standards, but they had a philosophy and a contentment that I think has benefited me and a lot of my friends since. And then observing the nature of change and the speed of change in India, that if you take, you guys got effectively independence in 47, even though we had theoretical independence before that, we just became a republic in 1948. And if you mirror the development of both, it sort of goes up like this. And I love the notion, as Forbes magazine has come up with, that India will be the world's largest economy by 2050. And if there was any doubt about that before February, I think that the coronavirus and how China has dealt with it will secure India's future as the world's largest economy by then. And key to that will be their interaction with Europe, because Europe, the States has had its peak time, I think, and that if we can find the mechanism of the Irish facilitating India in Europe, India and Ireland and Europe have a great future. And a strong, counterbalance like that is necessary, because if you take China's behavior in the South China Sea, in the Himalayas and everything, and the effectiveness, and you must credit them with this, of their Belt and Braces project, that now trains can leave Shanghai and be in Duisburg or in Antwerp in 18 to 21 days, and their development of ports. And, Europe and the West generally has to get a good perspective on this. And if you take what makes a nation great, first of all, it's its people. Secondly, it's the education. And, what you must do in this world is look what has worked best in other nations, and emulate a little bit of stuff. But you must then look at what isn't working and discard that. And academic excellence is something that India celebrates, and Ireland does as well. But we don't have as broad an appreciation of it from every facet of society that I think you've managed in India. And you will train people and pick people for the best football team and the fastest guys in the races, and you'll make them celebrities in their school. You won't necessarily make celebrities out of the kids who work hardest at academics. And possibly for the future, we may need to do that. And what I was fascinated by in traveling around India, the connection, when here you're Irish, that there are still large parts where an education in what were at one stage Irish Catholic convents, which don't have a lot of Catholicism maybe left, but the ethos of the schools was very much appreciated. And, so I began to realize many years ago that if we could find that where Ireland's experience in the EU, which is effectively the world's most prosperous group of consumers, and India's technical ability and wisdom and philosophy, and that if we could become the sort of little group like the coils in a watch that helped everybody achieve what they need to do. So there's a long answer to a short question.
That's very good. Thanks, Damien. And then before moving to your matchmaking of businesses between two countries, can we discuss a little about that? Yesterday, Portlaoise, your hometown, hosted Indian ambassador. So what was the atmosphere, and what Portlaoise expecting from India and from Indian ambassador?
Well, you see, it is amazing to think that what to me is the world's largest country and most interesting democracy by far, because I don't consider China a single country, because it's an amorphous mix of reluctant partners, maybe the Mongolians and the Tibetans and a pile of others that don't necessarily consider themselves, they consider themselves a component or a state. So, and the humanity and the humility and that wonderful, like yourself, Prashant, that unassuming generosity of heart, of spirit, and that willingness to appreciate that it's people that matter. And because of COVID, all that could be in attendance yesterday was the county manager, John Mulholland, who is probably one of Ireland's best county managers. He's got vision, he's got the capability to nurture and to nudge people to make change. And Catherine Fitzgerald, the chairperson of the county council, again, one of the first female chairpersons of county councils in Ireland. And she wants to see change as well. And I believe that if you take Bangalore and what it has done as, you know, the electronic hub of India and your own hometown up the road from it, help me. Your home, then how? Oh.
My hometown is Kanpur.
Kanpur. Yes. I keep forgetting. I was in Kanpur, and it's a fascinating place, absolutely fascinating. But if you take Silicon Valley and Menlo Park in California and Bangalore, Portlaoise ought to be and can be that equivalent for both Ireland and a mini one for Europe, because it's within an hour of our main international airport. We have trains every 20, 30 minutes into central Dublin. There's a good quality of life. Housing is affordable. It's less than half the price of Dublin stuff. Offices and space are available. And we've got 1 gigabyte broadband. So the vision that Prashant and I and John Mulholland, the county manager, share is that we make it easy and affordable for companies to get started here. Now, my vision and what we were going to talk about later was that you have incredible, you know, you go to Silicon Valley, and I think that the ratio of chief executives and senior strategic people in the software business that are Indian exceeds that of, I think, every other nation combined. And if we can find a way, the big companies manage fine, you know, the couple of thousand people and everything. But our objective is to find companies of sort of 5 to maybe 200 or 300 employees in India who would like a foothold in Europe. And we would find small companies, not necessarily in exactly the same area of business, but those who've had experience in interacting with the European Union, understand how it works, and with our common heritage and an astute understanding of international business, that we could all work together. Because, you know, one of the future huge benefits of India is, I think, the English language skills. Because even though America may be on the wane in some people's views, it is still, you know, you wander up and down the east coast of America, and the depth of infrastructure that is there, you know, the bridges, the motorways, the highways, the natural resources, they have effectively got endless fuel for the next century at least, that their time is far from over. It will need reinvention, but we all need reinvention every 7 or 10 years. So our objective is to try and make it easy for Indian companies to get a foothold in Europe, ideally based in the Midlands, where Prashant is as well, and he's chosen wisely because there is a good quality of life.
Absolutely, because, you know, I have the experience living in Dublin and in countryside, particularly in Midland. It is absolutely relaxing, wonderful, and even the better actually services. Some people, they complain that services are poor in countryside, but I believe it is more personal that you can get in countryside, because in Dublin you are just a number, but in countryside you are not a number, you are a human. So that's a big difference. Before Damien, we can move on your actually main topic. I just want to show one of your video, which we filmed yesterday. And after that, we will talk about the matchmaking. What is your vision between
Yes.
Ireland and India? Just a second. Just a second.
It's coming.
Okay, just a second. No. Something.
Welcome to one of our case studies on matchmaking. This is a modern, highly sophisticated, small printing and design signwriting business based in the centre of Ireland. It has a wide range of equipment. Modern. It has facilities for collating, printing. You can do all kinds of sophisticated booklets. It has sophisticated signwriting business, which would show you. Prashant, the screen is black.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Just a second. Yeah, I'm just bringing it. There's some difficulty. Yeah. Damien, what I'm thinking actually, we can show this video later because
Yeah.
there is some technical glitch and it is not coming up right. So I will figure out how to resolve this. But this is a factory visit of a printing press, and that printing press use very high quality of machines and technology, and everything was extremely no human touch facility to for printing and number of different operations for the printing. So, Damien, tell me what you think and what is your vision for matchmaking of businesses between Ireland and India, and and how you want to do this.
Okay. Well, essentially, it's very simple. It's bringing people together and developing some personal relationships initially, because business is about far more than simple economics. That it's about, and especially in the future, it's about quality of life and finding stress-free ways of the coronavirus again is bringing our minds to the fact that time is our most precious resource, and we must make the best use of it. Now, if you take the likes of the business that we're going to show you in the clip later on, it's small, it's got low overheads, highly sophisticated customer base, and the ability to do all kinds of stuff. But because of the fact that Ireland effectively is a country of 5 million people, large-scale printing of, say, large-run books, magazines, newspapers, doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense here. Whereas if we can find a suitable match for this business in
Mhm.
India, which
Mhm.
has large run capacity and facilities for newspapers, magazines, periodicals. Uh,
Mhm.
it can be designed and proofed here.
Mhm.
It can be printed in India,
Mhm.
and the scope for it, if you take the low base price for doing that type of thing in India, it will
Mhm.
allow the companies probably have a larger margin,
Mhm.
and come to understand um, how they might best integrate their business into Europe. And if you take, say, one of the big conglomerates like Tata Steel, which has become well, it's problems at the moment as have all steel industries, but
Mhm.
they became the dominant force in the European steel industry, you could say. Um, and take Wirepro or any of the big Indian companies, they would
Mhm.
all have started off with simple relationships and have a steep learning curve. Whereas if you can find the right caliber of person here with vision, um, with an understanding of European business, global business, um,
Mhm.
that I think they can all grow together.
Mhm.
And
That's very good, Damien, and particularly the sectors like dairy and
well,
agriculture.
yeah, India is the largest consumer of dairy products in the world.
What other sectors you think they have scope from Ireland to India and India to Ireland?
Well, certainly farming, there's huge possibilities for cooperation because I think India, you've 65, 68% of your country is arable. And
Yes.
you're, I think, the largest milk producer anyway in the world and the largest consumer. Now,
Mhm.
in Ireland, we have a curious situation. I think we only consume 6% of the milk we produce here. The rest is all exported in various forms. Beef, which is
Mhm.
irrelevant in the case of India, I think we only produce and consume 4% of
Mhm.
that for ourselves. But the dairy industry provides huge opportunities for cooperation
Mhm.
in products that are specific to the Indian market, um,
Mhm.
the casein market in particular. And to my
Casein has
amazement,
demand in India.
hmm,
Casein has huge demand in India.
it has. And to my amazement, when I went trying to source casein for you last year,
Mhm.
we haven't had a tradition of dealing with India in the casein area. And that's terrible because, um,
That's new area. Yeah.
yeah, you need competition in any area. And
Mhm.
then possibly the products that you do make from casein in India, there's
Mhm.
scope for either first generation processing here or
Mhm.
processing it here and selling it to the equivalent markets across Europe. Because
Mhm.
cross fertilization is a great thing,
Mhm.
and that, and also regrettably, there in the eyes of many people here, especially the beef people, there is a
Mhm.
trend towards the lower consumption of meat.
Mhm.
And India is living proof of the benefits of global vegetarianism. That, first of all, it will help with the carbon issue
Mhm. Mhm.
and um, get longevity. You virtually eliminate diabetes and so many other things,
Mhm.
and cardiac problems go way down. So that
Mhm.
there is scope for a whole pile of combined research in the dietetics and nutrition area between us.
Mhm.
And Kerry Foods has a huge um, food research business here, and you
Mhm.
never know with whom you could have strategic relationships. And
Exactly. And Damien, apart from these business relationship, there's a lot of interest in cultural relationship, and we share, uniqueness in culture between India and Ireland,
hmm,
particularly the Sanskrit language and Gaelic. So, can you tell me something about this and what are the plans for India Day this year? Because when you joined the committee, we got very two interesting new proposals. One is Ireland India 2020 handbook,
hmm,
and another one is to opening up India Day for the collaboration and cooperation in the health sector and
hmm,
uh, And we know that the experts in these two, and also in the environment sector, so experts from India and Ireland are going to do a live conference on 16th. So can you highlight some of actually these
Okay. Well,
areas? And
undoubtedly, Ireland's leading environmentalist and visionary in that area is Duncan Stewart. And
yes.
Duncan has energy and enthusiasm um, across so many different areas. But
Mhm,
his program is filmed in India, and all
mhm,
the people who were there filming it just grew to love the place. So we're
mhm,
going to have some excerpts from some of the programs that they filmed in India. And
mhm,
Duncan is going to engage in a debate and a discussion on how, you take the large scale, India is about to embark, I think, on building the largest solar PV project in the world. And,
mhm,
if you take the scale of your power generated at the moment by coal,
mhm,
how that changeover can have real global impact.
mhm,
And that we need to start thinking in terms of, if you
mhm,
invest here
mhm,
in something to ameliorate your carbon footprint,
mhm,
um, were that investment to be made in India
mhm,
instead of here, the global climate impact
mhm,
would be the same, and possibly you the bang for the buck would be greater, because
mhm,
you've got longer periods of sun. So if you put up a hectare of solar panels here, you're going to have
mhm,
X benefit. If you put the same hectare up in India, you're going to get probably 7 or 8 times that amount of benefit. So
mhm,
we need to start thinking globally when it comes to climate change. And
mhm,
if you take, there's a company that we're working with that is hugely involved in palm oil and the amelioration of the impacts of palm oil,
mhm.
and that that the demand is here in the West, and
True.
the consequences are felt in
Mhm,
Southeast Asia, not just in India, but in Malaysia and so many other areas. So
mhm,
again, it's that vision of the global village, that we're all neighbors.
mhm,
And um, you know, when you sit down with people in their home environment, you suddenly realize that
mhm.
we have so many things in common, and the
True.
love of learning, and we can really, as individuals, do our little bit to make the whole world a bit better.
True. And bit information about handbook, because this is a unique collection of facts and information,
Well,
and
the
it's about 70 pages.
yeah,
I'm hearing this here.
well, like the birth of anything, it's traumatic, and there's not months of what you might, gestation period is a complex thing. But
Yes.
we have a wonderful woman who is putting it together, and Amanda Wilkinson is doing incredible work on it. And
That's
the idea
true.
is that it is something that will provide sort of a route map or guidelines, or a set of sequences
Mhm,
um, that would allow Indians thinking of coming and setting up a business here or investing here, um, you know, the sequence of things that they might do. Irish people to understand how they can engage with Indian companies,
mhm,
and that those little first gentle steps, and
mhm,
from it, nothing is ever perfect at the beginning, but it evolves. And
mhm,
as our friend who is most relevant at these times, Charles Darwin, said that it's not the strongest who survive or the most intelligent, but those
mhm.
best capable of adapting rapidly when change is needed. And
True.
I think that our handbook, and the Indian community here uh, is possibly aware, but if not, we're going to tell them now, that you have in Prashant Shukla and his family the most incredible um, ambassadors for India. That his competence, his good humor, his eternal, um, what you might call, persistence to make things happen is a delight. But in that, he is not unique. It is a very broadly found attribute to your fellow country people, and I've been in China in times, and I know lots of them, but I don't think I have any Chinese friends. I have I don't know too many people from India that I've met that I'm not friends with, because it's they're just delightful.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, Damien, and thank you. Even when I left India almost 20 years back, I never felt that I'm not in my own country.
Hmm.
And from the first day, I feel if I'm living outside India, it will be only one country, that is Ireland. No other country. I have no other plans or anything. Although there was number of temptations there during these 20 years. So it is absolutely home. And
We feel privileged.
yeah, and when we had actually, in 2 years back or 1 year back, India Day family, the RT did the title "Home Away from Home" for their news item. So that's wonderful. It's incredible.
There's one thing on the coronavirus side, okay?
Yes,
We have some wonderful researchers working away here. And in particular, I think Professor Luke O'Neill is probably one of the world's leading strategic thinkers in this area.
Yes.
So Luke is going to contribute to the program on India Day with, his understanding of where we sit on vaccines, on potential ways of coping with it. Because, if you take the problems in the 1300s and the Black Bubonic Plague and the Black Death and stuff, that came back 60 times over the subsequent 200 years. And like the plague of pandemic in 1812 and the later ones, regrettably, the fact is they all started in China. And the dietary practices that have initiated this are ones that are just not acceptable in so many parts of the world. And it just doesn't arise in India because you're wise and astute people. And as well as that, like Pavlov's dog, we learn from experience that, after SARS and MERS and things, radical protective and prophylactic activity needed to be done, and it wasn't done. So we in the West,
Professor Neil, a wonderful person, and his contribution in handling of this pandemic in Ireland is unique. So we are really grateful to having him on panel and main contributor for the health panel on India Day on 16th of August. So that's actually, even, very significant knowledge and experience that Indian panel may gain. And from Indian side also, the doctors from All India Medical Institute and Safdarjung, they are the leading Indian institutes. They are joining him. So I'm thinking that could be something unique on India Day, and it is practical and timely.
And it can initiate another wonderful strand of cooperation.
Absolutely.
And on that line, we also have a gentleman called Jerry Hanley, who is one of the most entertaining and charismatic people you will have on any program. And Jerry has been very good at developing the contacts between Menlo Park and Silicon Valley and Ireland. And he has become wildly enthusiastic that Ireland can become the kind of crossroads between Silicon Valley and India, and that we can definitely become the Silicon Valley / Bangalore of Europe. And especially for companies in a period of rapid growth, because it is cheap and affordable to get going here. We find the strategic partners. Jerry spends a lot of time in Menlo Park and has organized the twinning of that with Galway. And, that there's no limits to what could be achieved here.
True.
And also,
we are going to meet him on Sunday. We
Yes.
are going to meet him on Sunday.
We surely are. And we're also going to meet Dan um, one of, I think, the world's most magical people, a guy called Brendan Speedy Smith. And
Yes.
he was president of the Students' Union many, many years ago. But
Mhm.
he got the name Speedy because he was always zooming around from one thing to another. And he's been Galway Citizen of the Year.
Mhm.
He is head of the computer department in UCG, and he
Mhm.
runs a thing called the Insight Centre. And
Mhm.
he's got an incredible computer museum in Galway. But
Mhm.
his real claim to fame is his
Mhm.
ability to enthuse. He has over 4 million people, young people in Africa involved in coding. And
Oh.
despite, and
Mhm.
I've phrased this correctly, possibly the
Mhm.
lack of maybe appropriate educational facilities that you would normally expect people to have to be successful at coding, he
Mhm.
has managed to bring them on in an incredible fashion. And
Mhm.
he gets awful excited at the prospect of running similar programs and helping them. Now, he's but he's inspirational. But his other important thing is that he's one
Mhm.
of the global experts on the circular economy. And
Okay.
we all need to do things closer to home
Mhm.
and create economic activity in our own backyards. But
Yeah.
our own backyard in this case is
Mhm.
a global backyard of the global village, where
Mhm.
the backyard is that of people who share similar values, not
Mhm.
exploitative values, but
Mhm.
similar human values.
Mhm.
And as was shown during the early months of the pandemic, when
Mhm.
exploitative pricing and price gouging was done by a particular nation,
Mhm.
um, that's not the nature of that circular economy that we wish to see. We wish to see the world develop for everybody's interests.
Mhm.
And Brendan lectures widely on the east coast of the States, in Africa, and you will find a new folk hero.
Okay, that's wonderful. And with this, just I'm going to make an appeal to our viewers. If they have any questions, they can put to Damien about India Day or in general about human health, because Damien is hugely contributing in COVID committee, and his contribution, particularly that Ireland adopting mask, is uh, absolutely going to him, because he brilliantly within the committee and outside the committee campaigned for the mask. And Damien, can you explain a little how you thought that mask is really necessary, and how, being an advisor to the government in that committee, how, what kind of cooperation and resistance you got to have this achieved?
Um, it's hard to make a diplomatic answer to this one. Um, I was appointed to the EAG group chaired by Killian de Gascoigne in early March.
Yes.
And the first thing, you don't try to reinvent the wheel ever. You look at what's working elsewhere. And for better or for worse, Taiwan, 60 miles from China, was
Mhm.
coping fine.
Yeah.
Um, Initially, Singapore was. And when you looked at the central thing that they were working on, it
Mhm.
was that masks make sense. They're cheap, um, they're effective, they stop you giving it to others, and they limit the
Mhm.
impact, lessen the chances of you getting it. And
Mhm.
whilst uh, the committee, and some of them stubbornly, were waiting for scientific, evidence-based information.
Mhm.
Whereas there's a wonderful lassie, Professor Trish Greenhalgh, based in
Yeah.
Oxford, and she's made a lifetime study of masks and their use in controlling influenza and other both airborne bacterial and viral infections. And
Mhm.
her point in a paper in early March was, um,
Mhm.
we know it can't do any harm. It appears to do immense good. So let's wear them until we find out otherwise. But um, it was actually noted in the minutes of our group early on that
Mhm.
people didn't even wish to see healthcare workers wearing them because it would be bad for patient morale. And
Okay.
I would have been sort of slightly aggressive in trying to change that perspective. And, if we have a future in controlling this, masks have to be at the core and at the center of this. And to that point, Prashant, who again is an incredible ambassador for India, and some other very enlightened people are on the verge of possibly having a mask manufacturing business in Ireland in conjunction with Indian manufacturers of both equipment and raw materials. And that fits to the notion of the circular economy as well. But if you take, again, secondary schools are going to reopen. Now, secondary schools reopened in Israel some months ago, and there was a large heat wave, and it mitigated, people didn't wear masks so much, and that caused a huge spike. And essentially, school children, like it or not, are pretty adult in many ways. And I find it, I wouldn't like my kids going to school without masks, and I certainly wouldn't like people that I cared about teaching in schools without effective masks, and not just pieces of cloth which may stop me giving it to somebody, but I want people to have the best possible mask, because if you study the physics of masks and everything, the good things, the FFP2s and FFP3s and 4-layer good medical masks really give enhanced protection to the wearer. And these ones with little valves on them, they may protect the person wearing it, but they're certainly facilitating the spread of it, because your breath just whooshes out through it. And it's the middle layer with the polypropylene, the fibrous layer, that makes the difference. The inner layer keeps the moisture in, the outer layer keeps the dirt out, and it's the middle viral filtering one that matters. And look for certification on the masks, and certainly in any crowded space, make sure you've got the best mask you can possibly find.
So that's Damien towards the end of this interview, and we had very candid discussion about, I believe, with everything from human health to culture to independence, freedom, and economic cooperation between India and Ireland. Anything else you want to mention today?
I suppose no, but if you take the future in the next 10 years, Prashant and I, certainly, I'm slowly approaching middle age. Prashant is in the prime of youth. We've lived in incredible times, the ease of travel, communications, quality of life, longevity, and everything. This may change for future generations if we don't act effectively and rapidly to mitigate that. And I suppose what the point I really want to get is that we want to make sure that in terms of both climate change and things like COVID, that we leave a sustainable world to the next set of generations. The global ice melt is disturbing, the extraordinary floodings and everything are so COVID is a chance to reevaluate how we interact with the world.
Absolutely.
And to make extraordinary efforts in the next year, because it is a horrible way to die. And here's what the point I want to make now. India Day is an opportunity for us to explore and experiment with how we can interact with people in a meaningful fashion without 12,000 people coming together in Phoenix Park to celebrate. That I believe it is possible that with video communication, which can be wonderful, and I'm getting a video camera, a proper webcam now in future, and with remote control and all sorts of stuff, that I would love to see that all around Ireland, small Indian communities, be it families or groups of work colleagues, would come together, have their event, and let it stream through this, and we get a whole 24 hours of Indian celebration, a bit of Bollywood dancing, Shannos Irish singing and Indian singing is almost
Yes,
identical. We have a wonderful
absolutely,
Shannos
absolutely.
singer who's going to
Only
perform
missed
for us.
actually.
And
We will
we,
only. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
and that this can be the beginning of a whole different way of interacting and communication. As a kid, I remember TV, black and white TV program, and there was a virus loose, and one guy had it, and they were going to send the picture of him to customs so that they could identify the guy coming in with this dreadful virus. And I can remember myself and my friends thinking, why couldn't they have something more viable? Who could believe you could send a picture across the airwaves? And the thing was about 20 feet square, and it vibrated and shook, and the lights went dim, and the little picture started coming out in little pixelations. And we were thinking, that could never happen. And now every 5-year-old has a camera that can send color movies. And likewise, if we can develop that sophisticated way that every home, no matter how humble, has its own little studio, be it your handheld camera or tablet or whatever, where's the tablet gone? There, yeah. And that we can find wonderful ways of interacting with families, friends, colleagues, and business people without leaving our homes. And this can really make our concept of matchmaking between India and Ireland happen. So there, thank you very much, Prashant.
Absolutely, Damien. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your contribution and participation in India Day Committee. Only one thing I'm realizing that we may miss, and the people may miss, that Indian food that they buy from the food stalls. But I appeal everyone on India Day. It is a unique opportunity if they can cook homemade food and they could have homemade food when they enjoy the entertainment and other academic and business interactions for India Day, because the India Day this year is going to broadcast globally, and it will be only not available to limited number of 12,000 people. It will be available to anyone who has interest, and they don't need to travel to anywhere. They can
I think we should have little awards. We should have first, second, and third for the most innovative groups that are screened. And we will think of some innovative prize.
Yes. So thank you so much. And thank you to all our viewers. It is really very wonderful that you came here to support us. And we are looking forward to having these interactions often. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.